how would you respond to somebody that says, I don't have the capital it takes to buy a new company? What are some ways that they could either fundraise, leverage, say like an SBA program, or any other ways that you've seen?
Yeah, well, I mean, the SBA is a great way to immediately knock out most of it, because they will lend up to 90% of the acquisition. 90. So the thing is like, now you got to come up with 10%. Okay? So let's just use really loose math. You're going to buy a company for $1 million. Okay? Now let's just say that it happened to be at a 3 times seller discretionary earnings multiple. I understand I'm getting technical, so I'll just assume that's earnings. Okay? What that means is I can go out and buy $333,000 in earnings for $1 million. Okay? With that million I need to come up with, the SBA is going to give me 900,000. Okay? And so you can get 900,000 from the SBA. So 100,000, might seem, how do I say, unachievable to you, but like $1 million is definitely unachievable for most people. So like the SBA just says, okay, come up with 100,000. Can you do that? Right? And the thing is like, if you go out to start a business, most people on average raise like between $65,000 and $70,000 anyway for the average startup. And that's like for, I'm going to start a car stereo retail shop. I don't know. I just made that up. But, but the point is like you can raise $100,000 based on, here's a company that I'm acquiring with 10 years of revenue and infrastructure and earnings and customers, because it's totally bankable, right? And so, I think lessons in how to raise capital are probably slightly outside the point of this podcast, but what I would say is that like that to me makes it totally achievable. And you need to understand that even that 900,000 in debt on this example is only going to cost you about 45% of that discretionary earnings. So I can't do that in my head, but that would be let's see, 333 I said. So after principal and interest payments, I'm going to do 0.55. You'd get about $183,000 a year in earnings, year one, on a $100,000 investment.
And for those people that are wanting to fire the man,
yes,
that $183,000 is probably a hell of a lot more than you're making in your day job. And so if you can scratch and claw and come up with that $100,000, hey, you fired the man. That's what I love about this whole process and thought process that you introduced in your book.
We bought the man out and tell him to go home.
Exactly.
Ask him for a seller note, by the way. Ask that man for a 10% seller note, and the bank will usually cover the rest. You might have to, you got to come up with something. So like if you can come up with 50,000 in this example, and then get a seller note for 100,000, and then get a bank loan for 850,000, the bank would. I've seen banks roll with that. There's ways to do this. A seller note would be when the seller of the business is actually acting like a lender to the buyer. And so having a seller note of 10 to 20% is not uncommon at all. It depends on the business and what we're looking at. If you're looking at like sub-$1 million acquisitions, seller notes are pretty rare, right? Unless you start to drop under, say, like $250,000, right? If you drop under $250,000, getting a seller note of up to 35 or 40% can be common, because banks don't like to loan on those really small ones.